And so I worked on that for a while. And as you know, the sinews and the tendons controlled more by the liver. And so I focused more on his liver and supporting that and talking to him with diet and things to support his liver. But he came back after about 6 treatments and he's like, "Did you do something to my allergies? Because I usually have the worst. My allergies in the spring are usually just unbearable." And he said, they've improved, like, I can't even believe it. And so, I didn't even know we didn't really talk about allergies. So and sometimes patients will come in and they feel like they don't wanna tell you their whole background because they feel like that's not related. And so, if they choose not to talk about it, then we don't really know how to help them. But it is fun, though, when they bring it up and it's like, "Wow, I could have let you know this would probably help."
Hi, and welcome to The Balancing Point. I'm Dr. John Nieters, and I'm here to make traditional Chinese medicine, functional medicine, and integrative health simple, practical, and fun so you can restore balance, boost vitality, and enjoy a healthier life every single day. Hello, this is Dr. John again. I want to thank you for joining me here for another episode of The Balancing Point. And we've gotten some great reviews about our guests. And today we'll probably get a ton of great reviews because I'm really pleased to introduce Alexia Bennetts. Alexia, who goes by Lexi, is a licensed acupuncturist with over 25 years of experience and specializes in pain relief, integrative wellness, and advanced techniques such as electroacupuncture. And today we're going to talk mostly about the electroacupuncture piece because even many people who have received acupuncture numerous times still don't know what electroacupuncture is. And Lexi is the founder of Calm Spirit Integrative Wellness in Colorado, has a very large team of people that she works with. I told her I was envious of her organizational skills. So, but anyway, she runs a very big center there. Alexia has a background in biology and then thousands of hours of advanced training in electroacupuncture, acupuncture. She's been deepening her expertise through advanced study with the Electroacupuncture Institute here in the United States. And in this episode, she's going to share how electroacupuncture enhances traditional acupuncture by using gentle electrical stimulation to activate the nervous system, reduce pain, and accelerate healing. And I have to tell you, I love this topic because we love electroacupuncture here at Alameda Acupuncture too. So electroacupuncture is increasingly recognized for its ability to address chronic pain, stress-related conditions. Not that anybody has stress coming up to April 15th, filing your taxes. And it is very effective with reducing pain and accelerates healing. So she brings Alexi brings a really unique perspective that blends decades of hands-on clinical experience with a passion for helping patients. She wants them to feel their best physically, mentally, and emotionally. So, Lexi, before I get into other things, would you be willing to kind of tell us how you got involved in acupuncture in the first place?
Sure. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate just, the great introduction.
Yeah.
I went to school for biology in Boulder, CU, and my mother was always into holistic healing. She was pretty much ahead of her time. There was a lady in Boulder called Hannah Kroger, and she had Kroger Herbal Medicine, and she had her own little clinic, and that's who my mother mostly took us to growing up. And when I was
Wow.
growing up,
Her
I
book's
didn't.
on my bookshelf. I'm
Yes,
so
yes.
impressed.
She was a really wonderful. Now I look back and I'm so thankful that my mother had that kind of guidance and she took classes from her. And when I was a kid, I didn't like it. I was just like, can't we be normal and go to normal doctors? And why do we have to be weirdos? And she was just, no, we are going to try it naturally because she knew a lot of times if she could do things through diet and other ways that we would heal. And so I'm so thankful for that. And then I was drawn to Boulder with a lot of the different types of. It's a pretty eclectic area. And so I went to school there for biology for 4 years, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to do something environmental or something, and then I did a year as a teaching assistant with stream biology, and it was interesting, but it was just not. I'm more of a helper, and I like helping people directly, I feel like. And I realized that I wanted to do something different. My older sister actually encouraged me to check out Chinese medicine because she had been getting treatments and it really helped her so much and she wanted to get into it, but she couldn't change professions. She's a produce broker and she's really good at that. So anyway, I was encouraged by my family to try it and go to school. And the first couple years I was like, energy, what is this? It's kind of weird. But the more I learned about it, the more I think we feel it every day, and we just don't recognize that chi is it comes in different feelings and just through you know just different ways. And so that really decided it kind of guided me into doing traditional Chinese medicine. And the more I over the years just learning, I feel like you could learn your whole life and there's still more to learn. And we're discovering new things with more technology and it's just so awesome.
Yeah, and you're a lifelong learner, obviously. I've checked out some of your things, as am I. I'm 75 and I keep threatening that I'll retire, and my wife just laughs at me. It's like, "You'll never retire," right?
Yeah.
And, so and as you can probably tell, any of you followers of the Enneagram, Lexi's definitely a 2. She loves helping people. That's her life story. So happy to have you here. Let me ask you some questions about what made you start including electroacupuncture in your practice. Actually, before you answer that, did you get training in electroacupuncture in your master's degree program?
We had a little bit of it.
Okay.
Just it was part of the classes, the curriculum. They had a few classes where people came in and it showed us how to use an e-stim or a TENS unit, but it wasn't well explained about voltage and amps
Right.
and all of the things that we learned that they're discovering that we need like high volts, low amps, and not these machines that have high amps and low volts. They just don't work with our body's energy the same way. And just different frequencies, all the things that we're learning now about frequencies is it's just amazing. And so it was some, but just not and I really wasn't that interested because at the time I thought it's overstimulating, you don't need it, you can just do regular acupuncture and it's effective. And it had been for like 24 years or 23 years until I took this class with the Electroacupuncture Institute and Jeremy Steiner, the founder, and he was a physics, first he had a minor in physics, and then he went on to become an acupuncturist, and then also now he's getting his MD and his wife is also an MD. He has both sides, I feel like, just and he explained electricity so much better than the school when I went to school.
Yeah. I feel so blessed to be alive and practicing at this time. I mean, every day. I mean, my patients will say, "Oh God, you know so much." And the only thing I'm thinking is, "Oh my God, there's so much I don't know."
Yeah,
Infinitely more that I don't know than I do know, right? But it's
right,
just and to have acupuncture and electroacupuncture being accepted much more widely now. My wife is the acupuncturist for the 49ers football team, and they
there,
love it. They love it. And she does 1 day of injury and 1 day of a sports performance. So before the game, she'll do sports performance acupuncture. And I'll look up sometimes and see these 300-pound guys walking up and down the hall because she's doing gait analysis, right? And it's a little disarming sometimes. Uh, Tell us how electroacupuncture works. I'm sure people are getting fascinated now. So give us a little rundown.
uh, um, how it's been explained to me is it's called I Chi, which is like energy, which is different than the energy that you see or that we have within the walls, like electrical energy. But it's using electrons and our body is kind of like a battery when it gets a charge and we can get charges from when muscles are used they can release frequency or release electrons and ATP and so this is basically to send a charge into different parts of the body that are deficient and you could actually use like a voltmeter. I went to one of the classes from a mentor, Dr. Tennant. He's down in Irving, Texas, and he He wrote the book, Healing is Voltage.
Yes,
He's written a few books.
I
I
recommend that
went to
book all the time.
Yes, and
I love
he's,
it.
like, 86 years old, he's still teaching. I went to his class last May. He's amazing, but him just explaining to many there were several, like, 50 different doctors and things there explaining it, but basically, your body is you can use a voltmeter to measure your frequency, and if it's deficient, when it should be at minus 21 millivolts to be healthy. And every channel should be at that frequency if it's strong and getting enough electrons and moving like it should. And if it's blocked or deficient, that's when you have things happening that shouldn't. The organ and the whole system, the channel isn't getting the energy that it needs. So then it starts to have problems. And so if we send Chi in using electricity or the E-stem, then it can help charge up the channel and give it frequency. You can get it other ways, like scalar energy using maybe moxa or using just even regular energy or electric or acupuncture just to send energy through, the way we do acupuncture to release different areas. But this is even a stronger, just nourishing channels with electrons.
Takes us right back to our first year of acupuncture school, right? Free
Yeah.
flow equals no pain. No free flow equals pain, right?
Right,
They
right.
were on it.
And so this just charging the channel to help give the body flow where it's blocked or where it's deficient and trying to get that, whether it's deficient or excess, if you get energy in there, it'll do what it needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah. The body knows how to heal itself if we just, get out of the way and get all the impediments out of the way. Right.
Right.
So that sounds awesome. And so what types of conditions do you treat with electroacupuncture?
We see a lot of pain issues. So, and with acupuncture, we're looking at the channels. Where is the pain, and how is it connected to what we call energy leaks? And there's different types of energy leaks. Like a root canal is someone, or usually that's the only doctor that leaves dead tissue in the body. And so, if someone has a root canal, their body is always trying to deal with that dead tissue, and that can be an energy leak. And every tooth connects to an organ system. And so we look for those kinds of things. Do they have, silver amalgams? Do they have scarring? Even tattoos. I mean, it's a little concerning now with the culture and everybody. It seems like so many people getting tattoos, and those can block energy. And I mean, not that it can't be fixed, but I think a lot of times if people have a lot of tattoos, it's almost like a scar that can cause chi to stop flowing in certain areas or block it. And so we look for, what are their symptoms and what are their chi energy leaks, and then trying to figure out which channels need charged. And so we use a lot of e-stem for pain and just by using that diagnostic tool.
We love it for pain. Like I said, my wife carries with her several electroacupuncture machines of different types when she does house calls or when she goes to the trainers. And
Yeah.
they're in amazement at how effective it is. So is electroacupuncture, some people worry about the safety, right? Which, by the way, I've never heard of anybody being damaged, but tell me how you feel about the safety.
I think it's very safe. You have to have someone that's trained to be able to hook up the machine and not hurt someone. Because you could turn it up where it would hurt, or I would think it would be a short-term injury, but it would just be like someone that had pain for a few seconds if they turned it up too high, but that's rare. If you know what you're doing, you know how to turn it up correctly. It's similar to every other acupuncture. It's very safe because if you're not going into the lung area or somewhere, you're not going to puncture anything. If you're not going to hurt nerves or anything. You just have to be careful about how you're needling and how you're using the machine to charge the channel.
I'm the chairperson of an acupuncture advisory committee for a major malpractice carrier. And so they let me set a lot of the agenda. And on every one, I want to know who's getting sued for what, right? And they
Yeah.
also cover medical doctors. And they'll generally have some acupuncture injuries, but they're all done by the medical doctors that are doing acupuncture, right?
Yeah.
Not by the acupuncturist. And so it's just fascinating. The last lung injury was an MD who was actually had worked with someone that was doing a demo and hurt his friend who he was doing the demo on because he was just cavalier. They're doctors. They and we are so careful not to hurt anybody. So
I know that physical therapy in Colorado, they were in the chiropractic board, they were doing dry needling and it was just trigger point, like in and out needling. And then in the last, I think it was 2019, they changed our laws in Colorado that they're able to do retention needling and add e-stim, and it's still called dry needling, which it seems very similar to acupuncture, but they don't really know the whole system to do like charging channels or things like that. They're more like just local releasing trigger points or muscles or something. But so it's different. I think it can still be effective with the way they do it, but it's also, I think that's when I've heard of more injuries.
yeah, and again, so when players get traded, football players, which happens to about half the team every year, there'll be new people coming in, and they don't want acupuncture because they've been hurt because a PT, and not to put down PTs, but used a huge needle and did what they call a pistoning technique, where they're just
Yeah.
jolting it.
Yeah.
And these big
Yeah.
300-pound guys are crying, basically.
Right.
And so when my wife treats them and they'll go, "Well, aren't you gonna start?" She goes, "I'm done." Right? So
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think it's really nice to be able to show people that it shouldn't be scary and it doesn't have to hurt to work. And they're like, "Wow, that really helped. I didn't think it was gonna do anything," because it
yeah,
didn't hurt.
yeah,
And they're used to
exactly.
dry needling or something that hurts, and it does not need to hurt to work.
Yeah. Do you have any stories about, where you've seen electroacupuncture work and be really helpful? You probably got hundreds, but can you pick one or two?
Just this week, I have, a patient that she's had hip pain. She's 74 years old. She's had chronic hip pain for over the last year, and they were telling her she possibly needs hip replacement, and she's been concerned about going in for that because she feels like she's not ready for that. And so, I do what they call a spinal bracket and sending on the do channel, trying to send energy through the spine down the dermatomes, and then also locally trying to charge the channels. Like usually with sciatic pain and hip pain, it's the gallbladder, and so we try to charge the gallbladder at the start. Sometimes I start with gallbladder one. It's one of my favorite points to start with.
Really?
It's a little intimidating to do needles on the face with e-stim, and I tape it on. I've done it on myself a lot, but the gallbladder just it controls so many parts of the body with the legs and the head and the neck. And so charging the gallbladder, people can feel a huge difference and it helps with improving sleep. I mean, just gallbladder improvement is huge. And so just working on her, charging her gallbladder channel and charging her do channel. And she was amazed. I really thought because she's from an era that maybe is more skeptical that this is going to work. And so when she came back and she said, "Wow, I don't know what you did or understand it, but it actually really helped me." So those are the cases that it's like, this is why I love this medicine, to teach people that they don't have to normally, and not to say that someday she may not have to have a hip replacement. I'm hoping that part of the Electroacupuncture Institute, what we teach people is you need Ichi and Gucci. And the Gucci is from what they put into their body. They have to have the right materials. So when I put in electricity and doing e-stim, it's like sending a bunch of guys over to build and start working, get the energy there to build it. But you have to have the materials. And so if I send a bunch of people over and there's hardly any material, what are we going to build? And
Right.
so they've got and talk that leads into talking to people about their diets and their what they're putting in their body. And there's like I tell people there's three legs for health. What are you putting in, chemicals and all that? And your emotional health, how is that? Your stress level, how do you deal with that? And then movement, how much do you move? Are you moving too little, too much? Are you wearing it out faster than you can make it? So those three things are a huge factor when I'm talking with patients. But, I've had people I have a guy with chronic sinus problems, and we've been doing I start with the stomach 2 on him, and I do the E-stim on it to charge that channel. He was actually a Green Beret. He fell out of the helicopter too low and crushed his sinuses, and so he's had chronic problems with them. But as we've been doing this charging his sinus channel or the channel that goes through there, he's noticed life changing. He said it's been life changing just not to have this pain and chronic congestion and all this. If we get the right energy in there, his body can use it to do what it needs to do.
That's fabulous. Just for the listeners, the do channel runs from the lowest point on the torso up along the spine and comes over the top of the head and ends above the upper lip. And well, on Qigong, it actually penetrates deeply in to the mouth, and that's why you hold the tongue on the roof of the mouth. But anyway, and then the gallbladder channel, and I'm sure you've had this experience. Someone come in and say, "I have a headache." Well, show me, and they'll trace the entire gallbladder meridian on their head, right?
No,
And then I'll put
yeah.
a needle in their foot, right? Because the gallbladder channel goes all the way down to their feet. But I always have to explain first so they don't think I'm that senile that I don't know where their head is, right?
Yes, that's that's so funny. When I first started acupuncture, my brother used to get migraines. And I started working on him, and I just would do mostly his feet, and he's like, "Are you even listening? It's my head."
Exactly, right? Yeah, there are a lot of things like that. I was taught in when I was studying more functional medicine stuff to start listening to the heart on the opposite side, right? And then you make your way through for the different vowel sounds. But I don't do that because as soon as I would touch it over here, they just look at me like, "Don't you know where my heart is?" So I still start on over their heart.
That's I had some Dr. Tan training, and,
Uh-huh.
we do a lot of distal points, and he used to talk about he would just put one in just for their mental,
Yes.
just to help them think, "Okay, he's not crazy."
Yeah, right, exactly. I loved him. I loved his classes. And I have my last clinic, not this one, but the last one, the rooms were so small that we had to put the beds up against the wall. And so his balance method was perfect for that, right? Because
Yeah,
I could get to all
yeah.
the points that way. I didn't have to walk around. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's very effective, even though it seems like crazy, crazy.
Well, I was there for 3 or 4 years, and almost all my treatments were balance treatments, and they worked. People loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so do you ever use Dr. Tan's with electroacupuncture? I never thought about that.
I do. And that's part of what goes a little bit different than what the Electroacupuncture Institute teaches. He teaches doing no more than 2 to 4 points with the E-stim. And sometimes I have my machine hooked up and I almost always do 6 points because I just like the way I do it with the balance method, having maybe 1 on each limb and then sometimes on the core or the face. But yes, I think it's very effective because you're still doing some of what I've done for years, and then I can add E-stim in to strengthen the channels with the balance method. So I think they go together really wonderful.
That's great. One of my books on my shelf over here is about Golden Needle Wang Leiting, who's the very
Okay.
famous acupuncturist, from the first half of the 1900s. And he says, if you really get it right, you only need one needle. He said,
Yes.
I'm not that good. He says, I usually use 4 to 6.
Yeah, that's I have patients ask me a lot of times, how do you decide or how many needles? And I'm like, if I was really good, I would probably need only 1 or 2, but
Right?
I probably need a few more.
Yeah. That's what I tell him too. So how do you determine when to use electroacupuncture versus just hand needling?
Well, because I've been doing it for more like the last 3 years, a lot of my patients that are regulars are getting used to it. They like the idea. I still have a few that are like, "I prefer just regular. I just wanna go back because 'cause I've treated some of them for 20 years and or more, and they just like the regular they feel like they've been comfortable with that for a long time, and they just so I let first talk to them about how open to you are you to doing some e-stim where you might feel tapping or just a little buzz. And if they want traditional, I'll just do traditional. But I would say 90% are people that I treat are they like the e-stim or the electroacupuncture and they prefer it.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. And there's growing interest in, kind of integration. I have a certification in functional medicine, and I notice some of your people and your staff do. And how do you see those fitting with the electroacupuncture and functional medicine? There's the old channel versus nervous system stuff, right? Which,
Yeah.
yeah, talk about that a bit, if you would.
Look, I'm trying to actually tie this even more together where we have because a lot of patients now are coming in because they feel like they're needing hormones and they need, to get on testosterone or estrogen. And some of these maybe bioidentical, but there are a lot of things we can do with their own energy to get it to shift and help them. And so maybe they do the Dutch test with our functional medicine doctor and figure out their hormones or they're too low in estrogen or testosterone or something, and trying to charge certain channels that would support their estrogen and their testosterone, or it just balancing those so that they feel balanced and they don't need to resort to more and more, supplements or things. So working with my functional medicine doctor and actually I've been kicking around the idea of getting more training on that myself just so I can run some of the tests and feel confident of giving them the results and then talking about let's use Chinese medicine first to try to balance before we go into supplements and other things.
That's awesome. Isn't it amazing? I mean, again, you're a lifelong learner and you really dive into these things. And how what I found is for me, there were several different groups of points, I'll call them techniques, etc., that I found myself doing, but I didn't know why, but they just worked. And one was an abdominal technique. And then I picked up a copy of Acupuncture Today, and apparently it was Dr. Bear's abdominal treatment. But I just came upon it. You do this for a while and you start to see what works and what doesn't work quite as well. And so another time, one of our acupuncturists here does a lot of facial work. And many times I walked up to the front desk and said, "Wow, Mary, you look younger." And she'll start laughing because she thinks that I know she's been getting facial treatments, but I don't. She looks younger, right? And the other thing we found with the facial treatments, Catherine was doing those at one time. And in 1 month, I had like 3 or 4 patients come in. And I said, "How are your migraines?" And they go, "Oh, I don't have them anymore." "Really? What
Yeah.
happened?" "Well, after Catherine did the treatment on my face, I don't have any more migraines, because it got so much blood flow. So
Yes.
those are always fun when you start to realize those.
That's yes, I've had a few like I had a patient that had chronic tendinitis in his Achilles tendon, and one of them had surgery, and he didn't wanna do it on the other one, and so I worked on that for a while, and as you know, the sinews and the tendons controlled more by the liver, and so I focused more on his liver and supporting that, and talking to him with diet and things to support his liver, but, he came back, after about 6 treatments, and he's like, did you do something to my allergies? Because I usually have the worst my allergies in the spring are usually just unbearable. And he said, they've improved, like, I can't even believe it. And so, I didn't even know we didn't really talk about allergies. So and sometimes patients will come in and they feel like they don't wanna tell you their whole background because they feel like that's not related. And so, if they choose not to talk about it, then we don't really know how to help them. But it is fun though when they bring it up and it's like, "Wow, I could have let you know this would probably help."
Something that relieved some of the burden on my shoulders, I was doing a doctoral program with I'm gonna pronounce his name horribly, but Dr. Mean, very famous guy, and turned out he was voted the top acupuncturist in all of China. I didn't know that, fortunately, but we're doing clinic, and he said, "Here, do these points." And so I did, and I said, "Why those points?" And he goes, very brusque, kinda older Chinese doctor way. And so then we had a little round table afterwards. I asked him the question again. He said, sometimes you just put the points in and it works. Right. And he said that the needles are very intelligent. They know what to do. So
Yes.
I took some of the stress out of my life.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone's curious about trying electroacupuncture, how should they go about that?
Well, I know the institute that I'm part of has a directory, and a lot of people that are taking the classes are on the directory. But they could also just do like a AI or Google search or something just to see who's in their area. And I always recommend they call and talk to the office and just see if they get listen to their gut. Are the people connecting with them, or are they? And then looking at their maybe their credentials and what kind of training have they had. And there's several of them out there. There's two acupuncturists that work in my office that really like the Lombardi electroacupuncture training, and they feel it's even superior to the one I've been taking with Dr. Steiner. So I think there's a lot of different training out there and different beliefs, like the different frequencies and how they affect things. And so, yeah, I think if they can just look around, they'll find some, and then just trying to connect with an office that they feel like they're heard and they're, actually getting help.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started fairly recently, actually, within the last year or so, putting on my schedule free discovery calls just for that reason. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm not the right person. I'm not
Right.
trying to. If I'm not right, I don't want them to come see me, right?
Yes.
And
Right.
so, and sometimes it's giving to our sports and orthopedics department, right? And sometimes it's stuff that's right up my alley. But at least they get to meet me and talk to me. And, maybe they like my personality, maybe they don't, but at least they know what they're getting into. So I really like that idea in particular. I have a question. Have you read any of Dr. Han's work, Han? He was in Beijing in the 60s. Well, he's the first person that I can find that started publishing the different frequencies for neurotransmitter function, opioid release, etc. And one of his studies just blew me away. I thought it was so brilliant. He was a neuroscientist and then started studying acupuncture and then electroacupuncture. But he did a lot of work on rats. And so with rats, they test pain at that time, I don't know if they still do, by giving them something good to eat and then shining a hot light at their nose. And they time how long it takes them to turn away. And so the more pain, the more they turn away. So they time the rat, how often he's turning away. And then they did electroacupuncture, and the pain threshold changed completely. Like he could eat about 4 times long. Okay, that's cool. But then he took cerebrospinal fluid from that rat, injected into another rat, and they had the same pain threshold as the first rat. So in his mind, it proved that it was chemicals, at least for pain, that were being released into the cerebrospinal fluid. And I was just blown away. I thought that was so brilliant, right?
I have heard this, but I've never read any of his information. I would love to hear or read more and learn that. It
Well,
just sounds
I don't
amazing.
remember where I heard about that particular study. It was in some class that I did sometime, but I then looked him up, and one of the things he was famous for is he worked on many different types of animals, and they all had the same responses. They had the same release of certain neurotransmitters for certain frequencies. And so I just thought that was very, very, very cool. So you might want to
So
check him
good.
out. He's a fun guy, Dr. Han.
I'll check
And he
that
has
out.
an institute with the same name as the institute that you went to, right? But it's in
That's
Beijing.
I'll have to look this up. I haven't heard of this. It sounds very interesting.
Well, it's fun doing these interviews because I learned something every single time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had one doctor that I was being interviewed by, again, a young guy, very intense and, really committed to what he's doing. And I started talking about how we do things diagnostically that they can't do. Right. And so with functional medicine, I do all these lab tests, but you can't replace the tongue and pulse. And so I talked to him about pulse diagnosis and what you can feel there. And he said, "No, really?" I said, "Oh, yeah." And I'm telling him all about it. And he said, "Can you send me the names of 3 people who teach that?" And I did. And he took one of their courses. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. So
right.
cool.
I was very impressed. Well, how would people get a hold of you? What's the best way if they wanna come see you or
We have a website, and a lot of people book online, or they can call my office, and I can give you it's just call the office, or just go to our website and book it, and we have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and it's under Calm Spirit Integrative Wellness,
Calm Spirit
and
Integrative Wellness? And you're in
yes,
Colorado.
yes, in Arvada, Colorado,
Okay,
and
excellent.
we yeah, it's been
You've got a very impressive looking staff. I looked at your website and I was, like I said, just blown away by the variety of practitioners as well as their bios, but you cover pretty much everything.
it's been fun to work together, and I feel like we have a great team now. We collaborate well, and it's just fun to learn from each other and help each other. I try to, when people start, have them do multiple treatments, and even, with even our skincare esthetician, she's have over 20 years of experience having her own skincare line, and she's very into holistic natural healing, and so not just all the, chemicals and things that a lot of people are doing. And so it's been so fun just to learn from each other, like you said, and help each other to help patients.
Yeah. I used to rent several rooms from a chiropractor, and at that time in California, they really liked acupuncture. They changed the laws, so now it's harder to do, but I was doing a lot of workers' comp, and, usually she was late, so no matter who was scheduled to see her first, I would end up seeing the patient first. And so then one time she happened to be on time. And so she saw the patient and afterwards she came over and said, "Oh my God, they have to see you first every time. It's so much easier for me to do my chiropractic work because they're so relaxed." Right? I said,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
well, I'll let you go. Any last words you want to add or
No, well, thank you for having me. I hope just getting more people informed about what we do with acupuncture and with electricity and e-stim, all the things that it can be so healing, and it's not scary. It can just be so helpful that they should maybe look at frequency medicine before chemical medicine, or at least to check it out.
yeah, exactly. And I love Tennant. I never met him, but I love his books.
That
In fact, one last thing I want to throw out there. A few years ago, there was a special on Einstein, right? And they said when someone asked him, "Dr. Einstein, what's it like to be the most intelligent man on the planet?" He said, "I don't know. You should go ask Mr. Tesla." And of
yeah.
course, Tesla said it's all vibration, right? It's all frequency.
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. That's what I love that they have looked a lot at what Tesla taught, and even this Dr. Jeremy, he actually mentored with Albert Einstein's grandson, George
Wow.
Einstein. If you look up George Einstein, it will say that he did research with electricity for HIV. And he says they've destroyed a lot of his information. They wouldn't let him publish it because he had found a lot of things that were healing people, and they wanted to use more chemical medicine instead of frequency.
Well, most of Tesla's writings and studies have not gotten to the public. They were grabbed up
Yeah.
right away after he passed away. So,
Yeah.
yep. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I learned a lot and mostly that you're a delightful person. And
Thanks.
I wish I had knew more people that I could refer to you, but we'll see. All
Well,
right.
thank you. This was fun, and it was neat
Okay.
to get to talk to you. Have a good
Take
one.
okay, take care. Thank you for joining me on The Balancing Point. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow the show, share it with a friend, and leave a review. Feeling out of balance? Most approaches just manage symptoms. Here, we get to the root. So, real healing, real clarity, and balance can begin. Visit AlamedaAcupuncture.com. That's AlamedaAcupuncture.com to learn more, explore our supplements, or book a call. We'd love to hear from you.